Every item of cargo is different, so each one must be assessed and decisions made.
Good lad.
Mark Dent is a cargo supervisor, an expert in all forms of cargo management. He recommends ship's officers inspect cargo before it is loaded to anticipate any problems.
Always an interesting problem, pipework, because they're obviously cylindrical objects, so a cylindrical object wants to roll all the time. They're probably the worst thing to try and lash and secure because they want to move. We can secure the outside of the bundle, but what's to stop the pipes starting to rotate around each other in the centre of the stack? I would prefer them to be using these chocking arrangements that they've been using on the quay, to put a layer down and then put these chocks to stop them rolling, and then after we've built the whole layer in the ship's hold, to then lash around the bundle so that each pipe is individually prevented from rolling. This case is only a protective shield around the actual piece of cargo inside. So the temptation would be just to lash the case down, which is of no good at all because it's just lightweight timber. The timber's going to break and the piece inside will go free. If possible, to have a look inside it to find out if there are any securing arrangements for the main piece of cargo inside this covering, to find a more secure point to lash to rather than just using this lightweight case. Also, on cased goods like this, large pieces, the shipper will quite often mark on the case the position of the centre of gravity for the piece. If we know where the centre of gravity is, we can make sure we don't lash below that point, because of course then we're going to have a tipping moment above our lashings. If we make sure our lashings go above the centre of gravity, we're going to be much, much more stable. It's always worth coming down here onto the quay to see exactly what they've done to put pieces together to make less lifts on board. We can see this steel work they've secured together with web strapping. Always worth checking exactly how tight they've made it, if it's acceptable to you, because as well as lashing now this complete unit, the individual pieces could move about according to how well it's been secured on the quay. So this one is obviously worked a bit loose. So again, you need to ask the stevedores before they bring it on board to retighten the lashings of this bundle. It weighs nearly 15 tons. It's going to have chain lashings on it, at least 6, probably 8, to secure it properly. But we don't want to damage the paintwork. Difficult, really, with chain lashings, which we must use. The best thing you can do to try and minimise it is, when you're picking your lashing points, say this lug here, is to put something like a rubber pad through the lug and then secure the hook of your chain through it before you come down to the deck. That way at least you're protecting the paintwork as best you can. Here we're looking at shipping second-hand vehicles, which can always cause problems. I mean, we're talking about more than 20 tons in total. Watch when it's being loaded. It'll soon become evident if it's got no brakes. If the brakes don't operate, we're going to need more lashings. We know that we're going to have to rely totally on the lashings. We know the ship's going to rock. We know the ship's going to be in a heavy sea at some point. Okay, we can lash the base unit down sufficiently to the deck of the ship. But that's all very well. But if these units stacked on top aren't secured to it as well, the base unit's going to stay in position. These are going to topple off. This is quite a good one, that the shipper has chosen to weld straps on here and then use the wheel studs of his piggybacked vehicles to secure them to the base unit. But there's not only one, there's 2 here, so you've got to really make sure that all the units that have been stacked to this base one are secure enough for the rigours of travel. A piece of this size, if it breaks loose in the ship, is going to cause so much damage and maybe puncture a hole through the ship's side.
For a normal ocean voyage, cargo should be secured for bad conditions regardless of the route, season and anticipated weather. But if extreme weather is forecast, extra precautions must be taken. It is the ship's master who has ultimate responsibility and can intervene at any time.
The problem is that this gap exists. This must be filled. Make some chocking to make this freight firm. If they don't do this during the passage, during the bad weather, this plate have possibility to move aside. 200 tons moving 1 centimeter is enough to spoil everything.
Wood is the best way to limit sliding by increasing friction at the point of contact. Known as dunnage, strips of wood laid as beds for cargo to rest on also help to spread the load. Wood is also used for chocking and shoring.
Well, up here in the forward hold of the vessel, they're loading many small cases. They've got some small cable reels, a lot of packing cases, small and large. There's even some drums down there in the lower end of the hold. Difficult to lash and secure, impractical to lash each one individually. The best option, which they're doing down there in the hold, is to minimise the gaps between the cargo, block stow it as best they can, and then tomming and shoring with timbers to fill in any gaps and prevent any movement of the cases down there.
The tighter cargo is packed, the better. If movement occurs due to any remaining space, that space will become bigger and allow the movement to increase. Individual items can be secured to the decks and bulkheads by lashing with steel rope, chains, turnbuckles, or other methods. Each has a specific function and capability. Defective equipment must be discarded, but in perfect condition, each has a maximum securing load. This is a percentage of its braking strength. But as there are no agreed international standards, specifications and practices, the IMO guidelines indicate how much lashing is necessary and by what method. Known as the rule of thumb, IMO suggests that the total of the maximum securing load values of the securing devices on each side of a unit of cargo, port as well as starboard, should equal the weight of the unit. This generator weighs 70 tons. Therefore, as the maximum securing load strengths of these steel cables, shackles and turnbuckles are known, the stevedore gang leader, in consultation with the chief officer and often with a pre-arranged lashing plan, can calculate what is needed and issue his instructions. Size, weight, centre of gravity as well as other factors govern the number of lashings needed. Their arrangement should be even to all sides, attached to the ship, not to other cargo or lashings, and in a regular, uncomplicated pattern. There are different methods for different cargoes. These prevent large items from tipping. And in some cargoes it is normal for slight movement to occur, which must be limited by a permanent pre-tension of all lashings. Very heavy items often need special arrangements. A lashing plan and diagram should accompany the load plan.
It's worth starting to think about well in advance exactly how you're going to lash and secure it before it's loaded. Sometimes it's even worth arranging for special lashing equipment to be placed on board before you load them so you can secure them properly. Even making extra securing points on the ship is always a possibility if you can't find enough securing points on the vessel to have extra pad eyes welded on, just so you can secure this very heavy piece.
Welding new securing points must be carried out in advance of loading cargo and under a permit to work system. But there are some items that present special problems. This piece has already suffered damage during transport to the quayside. It has a high centre of gravity and there are no obvious securing points. It's frequently a problem that much cargo is not designed for ship transportation.
then it becomes someone else's problem, usually mine. But I try and speak to the ship's agents and say, what information have we got on it? Is there any lifting points? Is there any lashing points? And you go back to them and, oh, what's that got to do with us? Then they forget that it's going to the other side of the world. And it's not going on Bar Road to the other side of the world where it's flat. It's going on a vessel, on an ocean-going vessel that gets thrown around something wicked sometimes. And if they want it to get there in one piece, then they've got to design these machines to be lashed and secured correct at sea.
It is better to leave behind cargo that cannot be lashed securely than carry it and suffer the consequences when it gets damaged. A big insurance claim is often more than the freight value. Once on board, its safety is the responsibility of the ship's crew. The contents of the many crates that are transported may not be indicated, but the weight and centre of gravity should be marked. On board, they can be lashed to bulkheads with steel rope and clamps, or wedged in with other similar cargo. The most effective way to secure large cylindrical coils is with 2 loops, attached to the deck on either side at 45 degrees. Lashing cargo onto Maffei trailers depends on weight, and lashings should be even and according to maximum securing load guidelines. Size and weight of cargo on trailers also governs the number of lashings, but angles are as the guidelines. This 3-ton digger, for example, on a typical ro-ro ship should first be placed on a wood base or rubber mat. The lashings to oppose transverse forces are to support 80% of the item's weight. Further lashings to oppose fore and aft forces angled at no more than 30 degrees athwart ships will support the remaining 20% of the weight. Angles to the horizontal should not exceed 60 degrees. Whatever the cargo, making sure the stevedores stow and secure it correctly is every officer's duty. Any officer can and should protest about any practice below the highest standard.
You have to keep a continuous check on the lashing peoples and don't leave them unless you are satisfied, and never sign their papers before you are satisfied. Because sometimes the lashing foreman will come, oh, chief, we almost finished now. So you just sign the paper and we are doing it, we'll do it. And once you sign the paper, I've seen in one port that I signed the paper, I trust that person. And then after that, when he was leaving the accommodation, from the accommodation ladder, he whistled his people and everybody left the ship.
The second or third officer is responsible while he's on deck for the loading of that ship. And that responsibility is a heavy responsibility and one that must not be taken lightly.
Of course, huge amounts of cargo today are carried in containers. Here too, proper securing in accordance with a load plan is vitally important. Containers are designed to be locked together in a stack by twist locks. These can resist vertical forces to avoid tipping and horizontal forces to avoid sliding. The joints here are very strong, but it is necessary to check that they are correctly locked. Locking mechanisms wear over time and will need replacing as necessary. On deck and stacked together, lashing rods in a cross formation provide further securing. But checking the efficiency of the lashings through a voyage is essential, as hundreds of containers are lost overboard each year. On other ships, containers may come aboard only on a trailer being positioned by the harbour stevedores. These must be placed on trestles, sometimes known as horses, and lashed at both ends and in the centre. 6 lashings in all. But if bad weather is expected, at least 1 extra set either side is necessary. At certain times during the voyage, especially after periods of bad weather, cargo lashings must be checked. It is likely that some will have loosened and some shift may have occurred. They must be tightened immediately.
Loose lashings are ineffective lashings. They do not retain the cargo as it should be retained, and you can get more movement, and that has a snowballing effect.
And once one breaks, the forces then are split among the remaining lashings, which can lead to the rest of them going as well, and the piece breaking completely free.
Secure and safe passage of cargo is the foundation of the shipping industry. It governs its economic security. Remember that proper stowage and securing of the cargo is a serious business. Further details can be found in the booklet that accompanies this video. Have a plan that takes into account both ship stability and cargo stability. Make sure loads are placed according to the plan. Check the stevedore's work. Lashings must be correctly positioned and tightly secured. Ensure that all cargo is tightly stowed. Personal safety during loading is important. Stevedores must be asked to wear proper safety clothes. Taking the time to check thoroughly should never be regarded as a luxury. Remember, the economic success of the voyage and your own safety could be at stake. The International Maritime Organization guidelines are there to help seafarers ensure safety and improve efficiency and secure the economy of the industry.
It's certainly a publication which all responsible officers should be familiar with its general contents and which guidelines it contains. Then, if you're in doubt, you can go immediately to this book knowing that the answer you require will be in here.